The evergreen cover of Guatemala's rainforests has been hiding its secrets from humanity for thousands of years. The jungle, which seemed impenetrable, hid traces of great civilizations that have long since disappeared. And it was here, in the heart of these forests, that the archaeologists working on the expedition made a scientific discovery that was to change not only their understanding of ancient cultures, but also their rethinking of the very nature of time and space. A group of scientists, including an experienced archaeologist, Dr. Elias Reynolds, were digging at the site of an ancient Mayan settlement. The work was slow. There were no monumental pyramids or elaborate sculptures, but it was in these remote areas that they hoped to find important materials to expand their understanding of Central American civilizations. One morning, after several days of hard excavation, one of the team members, a young graduate student named Marcos, came across something unusual. He pulled a stone out of the ground, at first glance, an ordinary piece of stone covered with moss and lichen. But when they began to examine it more closely, they found a set of hieroglyphics on the surface that none of them could recognize. These were symbols that did not exist in any known Mayan writing. "This is something new," said Dr. Reynolds, looking at the stone with a frown. "And it's probably much older than anything we've found so far." A few days later, the team brought the stone to a laboratory in the nearest town. A whole team of specialists worked there, and among them was a young computer specialist, Lisa Fernandez, who surprised her colleagues by discovering amazing patterns in the hieroglyphs. The symbols looked like a combination of mathematical equations and technological drawings that perfectly matched modern scientific principles, even though these signs were more than 1,000 years old. "These symbols cannot be random. They have some deeper function," Lisa explained, looking at the computer screen. Dr. Reynolds, carefully leafing through the records of ancient Mayan myths, could not help but feel that this discovery would change everything. But what exactly had they discovered? And how could the Mayans have had access to such knowledge thousands of years ago? Soon the expedition received news that other teams of archaeologists working in different parts of Central America had also begun to find similar artifacts. Each stone not only contained unfamiliar symbols, but also parts of a larger picture, mathematical formulas that, at first glance, were completely alien to ancient cultures. But each formula was also surprisingly precise and repeatable, as it could be in our modern science. Marcos, despite not having the time to conduct more detailed research, made a bold attempt to combine the information from all the stones he found. At some point, he came across one particular equation that not only allowed him to calculate the exact coordinates, but also included phenomenal calculations related to planetary orbits, energy, and gravitational fields. "That's impossible," he said, almost amazed. "These Mayans knew how the universe works." The scientists involved in the decoding began to pay attention to other possible aspects. Ancient Mayan records often referred to the Firestone, a legendary artifact that they believed could awaken ancient powers. When Lisa analyzed them, she discovered an interesting pattern. It was not just mythology. Most of these descriptions coincided with physical phenomena that could be descriptions of nuclear reactions. The more they deciphered, the more it became clear. These ancient people could predict not only natural phenomena, but also know ways to manipulate energy that humanity had not yet comprehended. But when they published their first results, they became the object of attention, not only of the scientific community, but also of governments and private companies, which saw enormous potential in these discoveries. A new race for Mayan technology has begun in the world. As scientific progress in deciphering the stones reached new heights, remote parts of the world began to experience anomalous events, an increase in natural disasters, unexplained solar flares, and unusual changes in the Earth's magnetic field. Scientists could no longer ignore all this. The feeling that the discovery could be not only a scientific but also an existential challenge for the planet was growing stronger. It turned out that in the place where the stone was found, there was an underground system that even the locals did not know about. Its entrance was closed by mechanisms similar to those described in Mayan legends, mechanisms that could wake up something that was asleep. The team decided to try to discover and reveal the secret of this place, not knowing what exactly might be waiting inside. During an archaeological dig in Egypt, a team led by Professor Emily Bennett made an unheard-of discovery. They discovered an ancient temple that was not on any map. The temple was hidden in the Sahara sands, and its walls were amazing, covered with hieroglyphics that had never been seen in official records. Most of these symbols were similar to classical Egyptian hieroglyphics, but some had unusual details. What surprised Professor Bennett the most was that the symbols looked significantly newer than any other archaeological findings that had been found in Egypt. This could not be a simple mistake. These hieroglyphs were precisely designed to fit into the structure of the Egyptian writing system, yet contained modern elements. "This is impossible," Amelia whispered. "It's like something from the future." She began working with the team, watching as each symbol revealed new information that combined science known only in the 21st century with traditional archaeology. Over the course of several weeks of deciphering, the team discovered that the hieroglyphics actually represent highly precise mathematical formulas related to quantum mechanics and gravitational fields. Bennett and her colleagues were shocked. How could this be possible? How could the ancient Egyptians have had such knowledge? "It can't be an accident," said one of the researchers, Laura James. "These symbols describe things we don't fully understand yet. It's like a code that explains how our universe works." By comparing the data, the scientists began to discover an interesting pattern. The formulas describing the principles of energy management were similar to concepts used in modern quantum computer technology and theoretical physics. However, these hieroglyphics not only described how energy works, but also gave instructions for its use as a source of energy so powerful that it could change the very nature of the universe. Emilia was on the verge of shock. This discovery, it's not only going to change history, it's going to change science as we know it. We are dealing with something that can be compared to the invention of the atomic bomb, or even the technology of interstellar travel. However, there was one big problem. Scientists could not explain how these technologies could exist at a time when the Egyptians did not yet have even the basic mechanisms to make such discoveries. After a month of intense work, Bennett's team realized that the hieroglyphics actually contained another important message. In the middle of the decoded table, they found coordinates leading to an underground chamber deep in the desert. They began to explore this place, hoping that there would be a key to unraveling why the ancient Egyptians had access to such knowledge. What they found inside shocked them. The chamber was full of metal and stone artifacts that did not belong to any of the known cultures of ancient Egypt. These were mechanisms similar to computing devices, but they had one peculiarity. They could interact with other technologies, creating energy fields similar to those studied in theoretical physics. But the more they investigated, the more it became apparent that these technologies were not designed to be used in the classical sense. They looked as if their main purpose was to hold a certain force or essence. The scientists could not identify what it was. "It's like technology that can awaken something that should be closed," Amelia said, looking at the interfaces of the ancient devices. "We shouldn't trigger these mechanisms until we understand what they might be." However, the team began to be visited not only by scientists, but also by government agencies and private companies that had their own interests in the discovery. An international struggle for possession of the ancient Egyptians' technology had begun, and the consequences could be catastrophic. During a space mission to the exoplanet XZ-325, astronauts discovered samples of ancient technologies that could never have been created by organic beings from this planet. According to the theory of astrophysicist James Lord, this artifact belonged to a highly developed civilization that was much older than humanity. This civilization disappeared without a trace. But what is surprising is that symbols very similar to those found on other planets and even in ancient cultures of the Earth were found on the ruins of this civilization. This indicated possible contacts between other galaxies and known civilizations. James and his team began to study these symbols. One in particular depicted mystical coordinates that pointed to a specific area in a remote sector of space where another unknown civilization might be located. James and his team began working on sending a research mission to the coordinates. However, a few days after the mission was launched, scientists noticed numerous anomalies. Strange energy fields, unexplained signals, and even massive disappearances of small spacecraft that tried to approach the zone. It turned out that these coordinates were not just the location of a vanished civilization, but a huge space object that resembles a huge dark zone by its nature, which absorbs all energy. The beings that once inhabited this object used this area as a kind of storage for their technologies. These technologies, according to James, could have caused an intergalactic catastrophe if they were activated again. The signals coming from this dark zone were a warning to other civilizations. But was it possible to prevent the catastrophe or to stop the madness of the scientists who sought to discover this power? In 2250, humanity reached new heights in space exploration. Thanks to powerful interstellar ships that could travel vast distances, numerous expeditions to the nearest star systems were made. However, the most important discovery came when the new star team traveled to the HD 2021 system. Here, on a distant planet, they discovered the remains of an ancient civilization that once had a developed technical infrastructure. The planet, named Stasia, was covered with many mysterious ruins that testified to a highly technological civilization. Its capital had once been a huge metropolis, but now only the fragments of these magnificent structures reminded us of the past. During the excavations, the team found more and more mysterious devices that could not be identified even with the help of modern science. And although it looked like these technologies no longer functioned, some of them had characteristics that were capable of regulating certain energy fields around them. "It's incredible," said the expedition's captain, Richard Collins. "These people seem to have had the ability to interact with the energy of the planet on a level that today seems almost magical." But the most mysterious element they found was a large pyramid in the center of the main city. Inside the pyramid was a huge mechanism that looked like a portal. As it turned out later, it was a sleeping world, a technology that could interact with the planet's natural energy flows and open access to its depths. Despite numerous warnings from the mission's chief scientific advisor, Dr. Anna Volkova, the team decided to activate the mechanism in the hope of uncovering the secrets of the ancient civilization. They connected their modern computer to a system that looked like feedback from the planet's energy field. What happened after that exceeded all their expectations. The mechanism started working, and the planet suddenly awoke to forces that had long been forgotten. The system seemed to have the ability not only to restore some of the technologies of this civilization, but also to restart the geological processes that had occurred on the planet millions of years ago. Very soon, natural anomalies began to appear. Cracks in the earth, new volcanic activity, climate change. The planet began to come to life. But was it a good or bad thing? Anna, feeling that it could be too dangerous, tried to stop the activation. However, it turned out that in order to stop the process, it was necessary to understand the mysterious code embedded in the mechanism. Anna and a group of specialists tried to find the key to how to neutralize the effects of the activated technology. However, when they dove deeper into the archives of ancient records, they realized that the technology of this civilization was used for other, much more frightening purposes. It was not a simple power plant. It was a mechanism that controlled space-time continua, capable of manipulating not only material objects, but also the very laws of physics. Richard Collins and Anna Volkova realized that it was almost impossible to disable the system. All they could do was to take the planet out of the control of the activated force. But to do so, they needed to wake up the last representative of the ancient civilization, the artificial intelligence that guarded these technologies. We have to find the center of the system. Only there can we understand why this civilization has created such a force and how to deal with it, Anna decided. But while searching for the center, the team discovered another shocking thing. Some of these technologies were intended not only to preserve, but also to transfer this knowledge to other worlds. Now they were faced with the question, are they able to stop this process, or can they become part of it? In 2205, humanity took a big step forward in its development by making the first successful attempts to colonize distant planets. One of the first was a planet called Atlas. It was located in the 12th star system and was similar to Earth in many respects. Climate, resources, and even an atmosphere that was almost identical to Earth's. As soon as the first colonists landed on Atlas, they found significant traces of a highly developed civilization. However, this civilization was not recorded anywhere in any space archives, and all that remained were ruins, technology, and messages. The most impressive of these messages was a stone found in an ancient temple. It was inscribed with hieroglyphs that were similar to the records of the ancient Maya, but much more complex and detailed. They contained a map showing the location of what appeared to be the central power station of this civilization. A team of archaeologists led by Professor Oscar Durand went to this place to uncover the secrets of ancient technogeny. After several days of searching, the archaeologists found a large object that looked like a space station. However, what they found inside exceeded all their expectations. It was not just a station, it was a central computer that controlled everything that happened on Atlas. Durand and his team began to investigate the computer. It turned out that it was connected to other planets in this star system, and that it could not only control all the resources of the planet, but also manipulate time and space. The system could activate powerful energy fields that changed the planet's gravity. "This is more than just a computer," said one of the researchers. "It controls the entire planet, but who created it and why?" A few weeks after the station was activated, anomalies began to occur. All electronic devices began to malfunction, and communications with the Earth began to glitch. It seemed that the station had some invisible force that gradually interfered with the development of human civilization on Atlas. Durand realized that this technology could destroy not only the planet, but the entire galaxy if it fell into the hands of unprepared people or was not properly controlled. "This is not just energy control. This is a tool of space control," he told his team. "We have to stop it before it's too late." Now, they were faced with the challenge of how to control this force or destroy it without letting it get out.